Welcome back to my Warhammer lore. In today's video, we'll be delving back into the Skaven to cover the right Thane of Mos Kitar, the Mad Tinkerat, and Chief Warlock Engineer of Clan Scryer, the great and terrible Despo, Ikit Claw. Yes. As usual, guys, the information for this video is being pulled from the Warhammer Fantasy latest army books, the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and of course, the majority from the Warhammer Fantasy novels, in case any of you man-things have complaints to raise with the claw. I cannot promise I will not periodically slip into queakish while doing this video, so I apologize in advance. But let's get into the tale of Ikit proper, and start back at the very beginning when he was but just a young pup. The mighty Claw was once a young pup, more than likely birthed in one of the many warrens associated with Clan Scryer. At a young age, he showed a great deal of promise that marked him out for greatness, especially his white fur, even among those of his clan, as his highly inquisitive nature and intelligence quickly propelled him amongst the ranks of Clan Scryer. It is during this time, long before the Second Skaven Civil War, that Ikit went on essentially a pilgrimage. He found the limited documented knowledge the Skaven had collected to be inadequate for his designs and plans, and thus set out to the furthest reaches of the Under Empire to collect knowledge and make more advanced machine things from the races above. Though he stole more than simply technology, Ikit traveled with the aid of Clan Eshin, no doubt, to far-off Cathay Indin Napon, where he discovered interesting mystics and bizarre magic not found in other parts of the world that were native to the Far East. He then made his way to Zarnagarund, and through treachery and guile, shadowed the hellish forges of the Zawi Zar. This is an important part of Ikit's backstory, not usually discussed, because this is more than likely where he came up with the idea for his iron frame, as the Chaos Dwarves are known to use similar technology and have made steam or possibly demon-powered armor for some of their champions. Not still satisfied, the Claw tempted the wrath of Clan Pestilence and studied the great machines of Lustria and the Old Ones, delving into forgotten temple cities and observing the lizard things and interesting uses of very powerful and old magics. He also traveled to Nagaroth and rivaled through the ancient burial vaults of the Druchi, no doubt learning much from the dark magics present in the land of Chill. It was then that the mighty Claw finally returned to Skavenblight, having been struck with inspiration and a collection of spellcraft and technology any wizard or engineer would die for. Of course, these expeditions would have taken many years, and as we all know by now, Skaven are not a long-lived race, the average lifespan being about 20 years, and so it is assumed that either Lord Mos Kitar, seeing promise in his future, either imparted knowledge to the Rat Man on how to extend his life through more mechanical and sorcerous means, or the mysterious drought brewed by Clan Molder that is also said to greatly extend a Skaven's life was of course imbibed. There is also the possibility Ikit very well have discovered a way on his own, on in through his many travels, as many of the nations he visited are known to have unnaturally long lifespans themselves. Regardless, the soon-to-be right Thane of Mos Kitar returned to Skavenblight and found the warped forges of Clan Scryer wanting, as they lacked the power he would need for his inventions. And so, armed with the knowledge of his travels, he greatly improved them and came up with ingenious ways to use warpstone, magic, and engineering to bring his diabolical creations to life. It should also be noted that it is said that Ikit was the first creator of the Doom Wheel, but there is conflicting lore on this matter, and so I go with the idea that perhaps he was the first to perfect a Doom Wheel, whom then hoarded the secrets to himself and allowed all the others created by his hand to be flawed in some way, which is a theory I find fitting for the Skaven in general, as they are so mistrusting that they would purposely sabotage each other's weapons so that they can be used against themselves. But this is just the conjecture of a simple man-thing at this point. It is then that Ikit Claw determined through either premonition or foul sorcery that Clan Pestilence was going to betray all of Skavendom once again and attempt to overthrow the council. Morskitar, with this foreknowledge, waited and prepared as the second failure of the Plague Lords to cull the Man-Things resulted in the start of the Second Great Skaven Civil War. Clan Scryer immediately sent troops and machines Ikit mostly developed himself, and of course the Right Fang to protect and secure the Temple of the Horned One. For all Skavendom, not simply so Clan Scryer could gain in power and authority. No, that is lies of rotten plague-ridden brains. This is where some of Clan Scryer's more interesting weapons teams and gun placements were, let's call it, tested. And of course, none of the usurpers of Pestilence could withstand the foul sorceries of the mighty Claw, whom in addition to his mastery of the mechanical is in fact one of the most potent mages in the Skaven roster. This is, of course, not flaunted, as magic is the speciality of the Grey Seers, and much like the more hidden aspects of the other clans, mastery of spellcraft in Clan Scryer is kept hidden, or explained away as some new contraption that simply produces warp lightning, because of course, one not worthy of the Grey Seers could ever harness the gifts of the Horned Ones as such. There are many examples in many of the other great clans of things like this happening. For instance, in Clan Eshin, they have their own sorcerers that actually fling around kind of fire-based magics, as well as in Clan Molder, they have the secret brew that only the elite much know about, and of course there are many more things left hidden. The Claw and Clan Scryer held the temple, and eventually all of Skavenblight during the war, and only recently relinquished their hold on the capital, most begrudgingly. It was during this time that I suspect Ikit came across some long-forgotten ancient plans, perhaps buried in the temple itself, which would become his obsession for the next few hundred years. This is, of course, what he would label as the Doom Sphere. It may have been known by another name when it was constructed in the heart of Skavenblight, but its power was evident, and its flaws, as this device was somewhat responsible for the state that the city finds itself in to this day. A half-sunken mess with nothing but death and warpstone-infused water and food to survive off of. It is also possibly the very act that destroyed the golden age of the Dawi and cut off the holds from one another, as entire sections of the underway, the tunnels crossing the Karazhan-Khor, were completely destroyed. A single Doom Sphere had altered the course of history, and now the twisted mind of Ikit Claw may have thought of a way to improve Thick's great machine and bring death to the dwarf things. Many things would be needed, and more suitable slaves, volunteers would be needed to construct the necessary components. And so Ikit led a raiding party into far-off Krakadrak in an attempt to capture many Dawi engineers. It was here that the terrible blonde-furred dwarf thing, Cleric Bronzehammer, would thwart him from obtaining all of the tools he needed. With resentment, Ikit's progress on the sphere was slowed, but not stopped, and deep beneath Karak Zul, a sphere was neared completion. After many years and countless attempts, the lives of slaves and man-things alike, of course Dawi as well, sacrificed in the attempt. But the hateful cleric showed up yet again to ruin everything. Ikit attempted to speed the process of the spear up and detonate the bomb early, but his nemesis fouled the controls, and an explosion engulfed Ikit, rending much of his body and nearly killing him. The sphere was a failure, and Ikit was forced to create his iron frame, mechanized armor that he wears to this day, and also where he probably gained the name Claw, as his right paw was ravaged horribly by the explosion and needed to be modified with long talons of hardened metal, sharp as any sword, and a small warfire thrower in the palm, just in case. The Claw, driven by hate and pride, tried yet again to construct the sphere, this time replacing some of the failed components of the previous with a new metal ironically forged by his longtime nemesis that could withstand the surge of power the chaotic energies in the sphere would produce until the exact proper moment. This, of course, was also not to be, as Cleric, through his own sacrifice and that of the Dawi of Karagenkul, where it was being constructed, thwarted yet again his near-perfect sphere. Oh, the beauty, oh, the magnificence, oh, the perfect doom sphere, ruined, destroyed by the hated dwarf thing. But the blonde fur traded his life to stop the claw, and now he still toils, looking for the perfect materials and construction to make his sphere yet again. And this time he will not fail. All will bow to the might and power of Ikit Claw. And that about covers the history of the most renowned of Clan Scryer, Ikit Claw. That hits pretty much all the high notes. Of course, there are a ton of history to go over. And if you really want to delve into the mad engineer of Clan Scryer, I would have you read The Doom of Thankul, and that is where you will find out quite a bit at the one Ikit Claw, the mad genius that he is. That's where a great deal of this was actually pulled from. Now, that is about where we find Ikit Claw today in the current Warhammer timeline, not counting the end times, of course. And the mad Tinkerant of Clan Scryer has finally made his way to Total War Warhammer 2. I did have my doubts, but he was up there on my possible legendary lord choices. Similar to his tabletop appearance, Ikit is a powerhouse when it comes to combat. He's both a warrior and exceptional sorcerer. However, unlike many caster lords, Ikit has a substantial amount of armor due to his iron frame, and is capable of taking some rather interesting mounts. He has access to some of the more diabolical inventions in either a Doom Flare or a Doom Wheel. Both are a significant improvement, as the other two legendary lords for the Skaven do not have a mount choice, which is lore appropriate, but in Total War is a massive handicap, especially in Warhammer 2, where large monstrosities are a common occurrence in most rosters and will simply just bat aside a lord running on foot. Ikit is also one of the very few legendary lords that has a ranged weapon in his Warpfire Thrower, which actually, if aimed correctly, can butcher a lightly armored unit of infantry. But the Claw would be almost nothing without access to Storm Demon, his custom-forged halberd that helps harness magic and also gives him access to a powerful magic missile. But that is not all Ikit brings to the table. And his clan campaign also has access to his mad Warp Forge, and can further modify and upgrade all of the Scryer-based units in the Skaven roster. A massive improvement over making them somewhat unique compared to the other Lord choices. Of course, I'd like to see the same done for them, but that is neither here nor there currently. And of course, there is the Piece de la Resistance in the mighty Doom Rocket, an invention for Total War, as nothing similar makes an appearance until the actual end times, though it is hard to say if Total War is going for pre-end times or during end times, so that's debatable. It is essentially an atomic bomb and can be used in campaign to quite devastating effect. There have been a ton of changes with the introduction of the Prophet and Warlock DLC to the Skaven, and in my opinion they are all for the better, especially finally including the Under Empire, though not exactly what I hoped for. It is honestly something I thought would never be fleshed out. And CA is doing a fantastic job balancing lore and fun factor with Total War. So on that note, they definitely have my hat tipped towards them, because they've been doing fantastic work, keeping true to the fantasy, but still, it's a video game, and it's supposed to be fun. So there is that as well. But that is unfortunately all I have today for you on the mighty Ikit Claw. I know it's probably one of my shorter lore videos, but he doesn't have his own individual book for me to pull from, so most of it is taken from the lives of others, and of course the army book. And, you know, if you really want to read fight scenes and things like that, you should just read the book. You don't want to listen to me talk about it. Maybe you do. I don't know. If you do, he is certainly one of my favorite Skaven, if you cannot tell. And his inclusion in Total War has been a dream come true. If you have questions about Ikit Claw, or anything really, feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section, and I will do my best to answer said question, or include your question in a future video, or my Q&A videos if you want to check those out. And yes, this pitiful man thing does in fact make mistakes, so please forgive any mispronunciations and or lore fudges. I did try to make it a little better, but it should be completely accurate. Oh, and if you have not already discovered, I am running a Warhammer fantasy-inspired RPG on the channel, titled Rise of the Forsaken. So if you enjoy Warhammer, it is lore-friendly, and I would love to share it with any who might enjoy. If you have not already, do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, guys. This will essentially keep the lore coming and the channel running. I unfortunately do not have the same amount of time anymore to put them up as often, but as long as there is interest, I will do my best to bring it to you as I can. As usual, guys, I've been Jungle Fish. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a good day.